Who wants to get this thing going? All right, yeah. So I know we have some people that have come in for this, and thank you for coming. We appreciate that. I also know we have a lot of animation students here. All right. Not bad. So raise your hand if you're in an animation program somewhere. All right. Keep them up if you're here at Lipscomb. All right. I didn't know if I saw any go down. Okay. I know it was like a trick, right? Anybody else from any other programs, animation programs? Okay, sort of, yeah, Belmont. All right, which doesn't have an animation program, which is interesting how that worked. So anyway, thank you all for coming. So this is a big night. We have tonight, I would say, I'm going to guess, Lipscomb University's first Academy Award-winning speaker. He just got an Academy Award. Don't go nowhere. Yeah.
Oh, I thought he was coming in.
On our drive over here, I'm just going to drop this.
Oh, dude.
We were talking about the old days of growing up in California, and that we're both pretty much straight out of Compton. Is that weird? No, nobody. Everybody's looking at me, think I'm lying, but it's true. Anyway, super honored to have Bruce W. Smith here tonight. This guy, I think you read it on all the little flyers and programs, but created the Proud Family in the 90s. Thank you. Huge. And hopefully tell a few stories about that. But also is an amazing animator. Let's see, so we both went to Cal Arts, but him a few years before me. I'm younger, so. But we would hear about Bruce Smith all the time. At that point, he was starting to work on things like Space Jam and things like that. I think everybody remembers those films. And Bebe's Kids soon after that, or well, before that. So we'll go through your timeline. I'm going to mess it up. But so yeah, and then he ends with Hair Love is the film that he just got the Academy Award for co-directing, and that was best. Sorry. Just directing. I'm sorry, we talked about that. That's my fault. Okay, he directed it, and had no help at all. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let him go from here. This is Bruce W. Smith.
Yeah. The W. Someone asked what the W stands for. Wikipedia says the W stands for William, which is weird. Which is not true. Don't believe everything on Wikipedia. The W stands for Wayne. Yes, my mom apparently was a huge Marvel fan, as she would say. No. I honestly believe my mom had no comic knowledge whatsoever when she dropped that Wayne thing on me. I don't know. But yes, you know, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, close to Compton. I'm straight up from South Central, so I was literally around the corner from Ice Cube, like kind of down the street from Ice-T, right? I was very bony as a kid, so they kind of called me Ice Pick. So, not really. I'll be telling lots of lies up here tonight, so brace yourself for that. So as Tom mentioned also, it's like we both came out of Cal Arts. Cal Arts, if you guys don't know, at the time, is kind of like the mecca of animation. If this were sports, it's what Duke is to basketball, basically. I didn't know that growing up. I mean, I was a kid who just loved to draw and had to eventually find an outlet for it when I got ready to graduate, high school. And it was something that, I went to Washington High School, in the heart of South Central, and, art wasn't sort of a thing. It's like I grew up, in LA through gang culture and all of that stuff, and so you had to assimilate, you had to sort of fit in and stuff like that, so you didn't necessarily get jumped every day. But I had those days where I had my money taken, from my shoes, deeply buried in my socks. You know what I mean? It's like, because you're dealing with real gangsters, and when it comes down to a quarter, they got to have it. So you learn how to negotiate. You learn these streets. as a kid. So so I kind of learned these streets, maneuvered. I actually made it past my 18th birthday, which was good. You know what I mean? But I found CalArts actually through like an encyclopedia. Oh, see, I got to remember who I'm talking to, I guess, right? So let me explain encyclopedia to you guys. So, encyclopedia was like sort of pre-Google, I guess, probably the best way to describe it, right? True, right? I mean, people old enough to know what an encyclopedia is. They know that that was sort of the place you went to find, sort of what Tom described as like extra pictures of things that you didn't necessarily have a full reference for, or, extended definitions for maybe careers or things we used to use for homework. We had to do sort of a deep dive, so to speak. If you weren't going to the library, you kind of went to the encyclopedia to find things, to get knowledge of things that weren't sort of the norm. So so animation in the Britannia Encyclopedia had like its own, chapter. Like it had chapters of animation. So that was the first time I actually saw an artist sort of behind a desk actually doing the things that I like to do, drawing with the pegs and moving characters around and stuff like that, and then get paid for it. Now, the weird thing in the encyclopedia is that it described animators getting paid as though they were getting paid in royalties, right? And I didn't know exactly what that meant as a kid. I'm like, what do you got? You get jewels and diamonds and rubies for animating? That's a whole different form of exchange. I can't come back to the hood with jewels and stuff like that. I actually think that that's actually going to work. Later on, I found out it was about royalties when I developed TV shows, and found out that that's not what I'm going to get. So, I figured that part out too. So, but at the same time, it allowed me to sort of like tell my parents, who, understood that that was something that I wanted to pursue, that I wasn't going to be a starving artist, because that was sort of the thing that was attached to an artist at the time. You're going to starve. So my mom was, she was instrumental. She encouraged me to continue to draw and stuff like that, and continue to search for the things you're going to do, because you're going to do it for a long time, so you might as well be happy doing it. So so that's when I really sort of embarked on the adventure of animation. And when I got to CalArts, and mind you, and drawing in school and stuff like that, I was that kid where, you'd open the book, your local book, and you see all these doodles in your book, and I was that dude. Like, I was the guy who was always doodling in the back of the book. You turn to page 75, and you see a caricature of me going like this. Like, I was that guy. So I ended up, being a part of the journalism staff at school, because I could draw for the school newspaper and stuff like that. But I never really took it serious. The only thing I actually really did was cartoons. Like, that's the only style that I knew how to draw in. So, and I did it, just draw stuff and discard it, give it to my students and stuff, or give it to my friends and stuff like that growing up, and they found value in it, but I didn't. But I knew it was something that I really wanted to do. So eventually when I went to CalArts and got accepted to CalArts, that's when I realized how bad I really was, because the guys I went to at CalArts were the guys who went on to direct movies like Lion King and How to Train Your Dragon and Little Mermaid, Mulan. These guys were like my classmates, Tarzan. I mean, I sat across from guys who really kind of shaped all those films in the 90s and stuff like that. So you're talking about all the stuff from Lion King through like Emperor's New Groove and Toy Story even, and all that Pixar stuff. All those artists came through CalArts. So CalArts was a real serious place to really learn and hone your craft. I actually went to CalArts, stayed there for about 2 years, and mainly it was two reasons. Mainly because one was because I couldn't get a full scholarship for my third year there, because CalArts wasn't cheap. And I found a job that summer at a studio that ended up sort of being a fly-by-night studio, but at the same time actually hired me to do the job that I really wanted to do when I was at school, because I'm learning animation in school, but with this studio hiring me to be an animator, I was like, okay, why should I go back to school? Because I'm actually, making a whopping $300 a week being an animator. Like, this is fantastic. This is exactly what I want to do. So I decided to sort of take that summer job and kind of stretch it out into, I guess, what ended up being a career somewhat. I'm not done. I don't want to have this be a reflection of like, a career that's over, because I'm still working. So we mentioned like, okay, well then, what were some of your first stops, I guess? One of my first stops actually was at Disney Studios. I'm old enough to actually have been animating on Roger Rabbit, you guys, Yeah, it's crazy, right? See, I didn't want to go back too far in my career, because I realized there's a lot of young people here, and you probably don't know who Roger Rabbit is. Or actually, you probably just think Roger Rabbit is like just that dance. and not necessarily an animated thing. So, but yes, I worked on these shorts, worked on the film, and then we segued working on these shorts. It was really fun because this was my style. Like, I grew up really loving, like, Tex Avery, Chuck Jones, and that's kind of where this style with Roger Rabbit was kind of born, which I think is, for me, it was like it represented real freedom in terms of really trying to craft a character. Because as an animator, we all know that, you know, all this stuff kind of breaks down. People think, you know, being in animation is side of one thing, one sort of monolithic thing. But animation itself divides itself amongst lots of skill sets. So for me, you know, I'm an animator first, which means I'm sort of the actor in the film or the short or the TV show when you're calling yourself an animator. You know, there are background painters, there are layout designers, there are character designers, there are directors. So all these different facets are valuable in terms of making a complete animated film, as you guys know. I'm talking to the choir here, so you guys know this stuff. So Roger Rabbit actually allowed me to ooh, I don't want to pass that, I guess. It's interesting. That's the 1989 model of me. This movie actually was done after we did Roger Rabbit. We did this piece with that actually had walked you through the process of animation, from the idea to storyboards, right through animation, voice recording, yada yada. So in this movie, outside of supervising the animation in this movie, it's a really short film that played at the Disney MGM Studio Tours back in the 90s when you guys weren't born. Just always like throwing that out. Just know who I'm talking to here. I actually played the animator in it. Interesting caveat in this is that when the director, this guy Jerry Reese, who actually was sort of like we were actually casting for the person to actually play the animator in this short, because it's live action animation mix. There was lots of faces being put in front of Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was head of the studio at the time. You probably don't know the story. So he was all these faces being put in front of Jeffrey Katzenberg at the time, and then all of a sudden there was this black dude that was put in front of Jeffrey Katzenberg. Now Jerry Reese said, listen, all these guys here that you're looking at, Jeffrey, they look cool, but they don't know animation. Bruce can flip, he can do all this stuff. He does these things that a normal animator would do. So we think it's necessary that we cast an actual animator in this role. And Jeffrey said, oh, okay. And all of a sudden when we went on set for the first time, and I meet Jeffrey, and then Jeffrey goes back to Jerry and says, man, that dude has a very thick mustache. Now, you got to remember at the time, there was an actual dress code at Disney where they actually sort of had you sort of like, you know, you remember this, right? They said your hair had to be cut a certain length and your mustache can't be too thick, apparently. So I had to shave my mustache down a little bit, but I still sported the Bobby Brown high top fade with perfection. So I enjoyed that. But I had my lone lines in this movie, which was, hey, all right, let's go. That was my line. I did about 72 takes on that line. Because I mastered the craft. I want to perfect it myself. I called 50 of those myself. But it was fun because, you know, I got to meet Robin Williams, who's definitely a comic genius. He was really fun and flattered by the idea of us sort of capturing his legacy. We walked him through the idea of being a lost boy in Peter Pan, which was a very fun short. You probably can't catch this anywhere. If I knew you were going to have a slide of this, I actually would have brought that short tonight, because I'm probably the only holder of this short. Pretty proud of that. Which, on the other side of it, too, means that no one else will really see it, so it kind of sucks. Let's talk about stuff that probably didn't work. Because as you go through your career, you always work on stuff that's not so great. I'll just be the first one to tell you that I worked on a lot of really bad things in my career. This is not one of them. Actually, I actually enjoyed this for the reasons of, one of the things you learn about working in this business is that even though you can't control the outcome of a certain product if you're not directing it, you still enjoy the experience of all the people that you work with, right? Because that's kind of how you grow as an artist also. So I really worked on some amazing artists on this project, Rodney Dangerfield. So again, anybody, let's see, younger than 20, probably would not know who Rodney Dangerfield was, right? So Rodney Dangerfield was another comedian. I see you shaking your head. No, shame on you don't know who Rodney Dangerfield is. I get no respect? Hey, no? No registering? Okay, all right. So basically this comedian, Rodney Dangerfield, had this shtick about not getting any respect, right? So, which hence the red tie, the dog in the red tie. So the movie was about this dog who goes to Vegas. I forget everything else because it's kind of cloudy. Worked with a lot of great people, including Rodney himself. Rodney was hilarious. Anybody who knows Rodney knows that he was notorious for wearing like this sort of red tie. When I remember all of us went to his hotel to sort of pitch storyboards to him, right? We show up at his hotel room. You don't know the story. We show up at his hotel room. It's great. He answers the door. He answers the door in a red robe. It was just tied red robe, elbows rubbed out. I remember that for whatever reason. I know he had holes in the, And it was at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, which is like a big-time hotel in L.A. He opens the door. He's like, "Boys, how are you?" And he would always be nervous like this. "Hey, boys, how are you? Come in." So we come in. He sat down. There's kids here. Okay, let me try to PG this story. So he sits down in his red robe. The robe flies open as he sits down on the couch. He's wearing nothing. He then proceeds to grab the couch pillow, shoves it between his legs. It says, "Okay, boys, page 1. And we open the script, page 1. In the meantime, we're all like a Tex Avery cartoon. All of our mouths are like, "Did you just? I didn't see that. Did you see that? I didn't see it." And each time we met with Rodney, it was always sort of the same story. We'd meet. He'd have the red robe. It would fly open. He'd sit, put the pillow between his legs. Now, Rodney was also sort of in rehab at the time, meaning he was having an experience with marijuana that he couldn't figure out how to get past. So he would always be eating this giant salad with tongs. You know the tongs that you kind of serve up the salad with? So I'm thinking that he was probably experiencing the high that day and was really throwing back a lot of salad, which was very strange. Very strange visuals I remember working with Rodney. It was really great. We had a great fun working with Rodney. Actually, to this day, I believe I still have a very small joint that he actually smoked. More kids walk in. So let me just skip past the rest of that story. So yes, as you mentioned, I also directed a film called Bebe's Kids. It was actually on the heels of Rover Dangerfield. Got my chance to actually sort of like jump behind the director's chair for the first time. And that was fun because I kind of knew who these characters were. I knew the experience. I felt like I grew up across the street from Bebe's Kids. If anybody don't know what Bebe's Kids is in the routine, you can Google Robin Harris. Robin Harris was a comedian, Los Angeles. Known for he had this comedy venue called the Comedy Act Theater in the heart of Los Angeles, where all the comedians, this is early 1990, late 80s, early 90s, where people would come in, all of your favorite comedians would come in and train, get the bones of their comedy from Robin Harris. He was well respected. Robin Harris is probably the precursor to Def Jam. Def Jam comedy, if anybody's familiar with that, that's where Martin Lawrence was born. That's where Dave Chappelle cut his chops. That's where Chris Rock, D.L. Hughley, all these comedians used to come into the place and really absorb all things Robin Harris. So the birth of this movie actually came sadly from Robin Harris's death. So they were actually making a live action film of Bebe's Kids, and then he passed suddenly in Chicago, and the Hudlin brothers, Reginald and Warrington Hudlin, actually were making this with Robin Harris, but decided after he had passed that we can still make this because we know there's some comedians out there. We knew one comedian specifically who actually did an incredible Robin Harris. His name was Faison Love, and so we brought Faison in. Faison did the voice of Robin in this movie. For whatever reason, people think that it was actually Robin Harris in this movie, but it was actually this comedian Faison Love who actually carried that torch, and we ended up telling a story about these three kids who were left to be babysat by our heroine Jamaica and her son Leon. And we had these 3 additional kids, and Robin Harris takes these kids out to Disneyland for a day of mayhem. That's kind of what the movie was about. Basically, the heart of the movie was showing the exploit of these 3 kids, and, they were sort of like parentless and sort of aimless, but, it was really about trying to and Robin ended up sort of like embracing these kids and therefore creating like what you would call a sort of a nuclear family, kind of like, galvanizing a community to help raise these kids, so to speak. The film was interesting because a lot of critics at the time didn't understand where to place this movie. It was way ahead of its time. We were right at the birth of hip-hop, when hip-hop was really sort of permeating lots of different places around the nation, unlike hip-hop today, where this is just my old man opinion, where hip-hop feels like it's just one long song. Back in the day, we had different voices, we had the West Coast voices, we had the East Coast voices, and we had voices from down south. Houston was just kind of coming up, so you had all these different voices that really kind of painted a nice sort of diaspora to hip-hop at the time. And we had that music in the movie, and had a lot of fun making the movie, learned a lot from this movie, because prior to this movie, there was actually no animated movie that actually featured African-American characters as your central characters that sort of, led the narrative. So this was a first for us in a lot of ways. And we would have hoped that it would have spawned a lot of other copycats, because in most cases, people copy everything that you see mostly in animation, but nobody actually followed it up. And I realized that in most cases, it's like, listen, our animation business is probably made up of 3 to 5% African-Americans. So, therefore, you will not get a lot of, African-American content on the screen from an animation standpoint, because we just aren't there at the table making those decisions to put us in primary parts in films. Because then you got to dissect that 3 to 5% and say, out of that 3 to 5%, who actually can do something or actually can have a say at the table to make those characters kind of, pop out and be a part of it. And for me growing up, it was a thing where I loved, the Jetsons, and I loved the Flintstones, and I remember being in the back seat of a stolen Chevy, because I did that stuff back when I was like 16, 17 years old, but really wanting to, to not live this lifestyle. But I still remember in the back seat, with a crowbar, and we're laughing about driving away in the Chevy, and the buddy of mine is like saying, hey, man, so you still want to do that cartoon stuff? And I'm holding this thing, and I knew I don't want to do this. So I'm like, yeah, I do want to do that as a living. He's like, man, black people don't do cartoons. And I'm like, I never really thought, because animation is just sort of like universal. I'm thinking it's just skill set. If you're good enough, you could be an animator, but I never thought about black people in cartoons and black people not doing cartoons. It never occurred to me. And then he started to continue to wax philosophically, and he says, you ever see the Flintstones? Flintstones like my favorite show. And I'm like, yeah, I watch Flintstones. Ain't no black people in the Flintstones. I'm like, yeah, he's right, huh? He's like, yeah, you ever see the Jetsons? And I was like, I know where you're going. There ain't no black people in the Jetsons either. So what you're trying to say, my brother, is there's no black people in the past, therefore no black people in the future of this medium. Is that what you're trying to tell me? So at that point, it really kind of hit me hard. And I was like, wow, okay. So I guess if I'm going to be in this medium and I want to do all this fun stuff, but I want to make sure that I put myself in front of these projects also. So that's why I really jumped at the opportunity to do something like Bebe's Kids, because it's like now it puts us in the history books. Now, for better or for worse, we're there. So it's a film that exists that you hope that at some point you'd be able to kind of pay off. So I thought about that as I move forward. There's other films I worked on, a Goofy movie. Did a lot of designs for. I'm catching up now, right? Some people remember the Goofy movie? Yeah, okay. You remember that character? What was the character? Powerline? You guys remember Powerline? Okay, I'm just checking because there's things swirling around at the place that I'm at right now, and I'm trying to figure out who checks on Powerline. Okay, good. All right. So Space Jam, of course, was the next black project that I worked on. No? Nobody? Don't believe that's a black project? Well, there's Michael Jordan, right? There's Daffy Duck, right? All right, okay, good. Black project. All you need is one black person in the project to clarify that it's a black project. So, no, this is really fun to work on. working on live action animation sort of ended up being a thing for me. I worked on a lot of commercials throughout the 90s that featured live action animation, and then obviously the commercials that existed that had Michael Jordan and Spike Lee and Bugs Bunny were sort of like the kind of like the catalyst for the movie. So this was really fun. Actually, I didn't start out directing the animation in this film. I actually turned down that job twice because I saw the two directors before me get fired. And I just was not in the mood for getting fired because I knew that the director, the live action director, there's kids in here, so I can't say exactly what he was, but dude was tough. Dude was a tough dude. He was about 6'7". I mentioned I was like 6'7". He was very muscly. I don't know if anybody's seen the movie Die Hard. You remember the guy in Die Hard, the Alexander Goodenough character who had the last fight with Bruce Lee, ended up hanging from the chains and he was that guy. Like, that's who my director was. And every day he would walk into the studio and berate somebody. You know, if you were in his eye line, he would get on you somehow. And that's live action. Live action is a very stressful medium. For all you guys trying to get in live action, God bless you, because, it's just a little too much, man. I used to see fights on Space Jam, like physical fights, like the director getting into physical fights with the other players. I mean, I broke up a fight. I broke up 2 fights. One fight I let happen, actually. One fight, the first fight that Joe Pitka had with one of the basketball players in between. So what he would do, Joe Pitka would, like, in between shots and live, they're setting up new shots, and Joe Pitka would have a basketball court, off to the side, and he would just be shooting baskets, and he'd bring out one of the players or whatever to kind of shoot baskets with him, stuff like that. But Joe was like a bruiser. Like, if anybody ball in here, like, you kind of know, you get back down in the paint, and you get elbows, and you get the chicken wings and all of this stuff, and all of that happening in the paint, and then you turn around and shoot your shot. Like, that was Joe. Joe was like the Tasmanian devil in the paint, and then he would turn and shoot the ball. And so one of the players had too much of Joe that day. So they started pushing and shoving, then fists started flying, and before you look up, there's nosebleeds, there's clothing ripped and all this. It was pretty crazy that day. That's why I didn't want to break up, because those are 2 big dudes, and they were fighting, and I'm not that tall. I mean, in that world, I'm not that tall. So that was bad. The second fight I remember I had to break up, which I probably shouldn't have broke up, but I did, and that was when Joe Pitka got into it with our producer, Ivan Reitman, and they were about to fight because we had just wrapped the live action, and I think Joe was just told that he can't cut the film. I think they were going to cut the film. And then, a director, you want to be able to have your final cut and stuff like that, right? And he wasn't allowing final cut, and Joe was like, "What do you mean?" And then Ivan was like, but Ivan's like maybe 5'5", Joe Picka's like 6'7". So you had to break that fight up. That was just what you do at that point. But it was fun, we had a great time making this. Like I said, Michael Jordan was really sort of into the idea of playing alongside Bugs. He had a great sense of humor. There was a lot of spontaneous stuff that happened. I don't know if you guys remember the movie, but there was one point where all of a sudden Bill Murray just kind of shows up, right? And then Bill Murray's line was like, "Hey, man, how'd you get here?" And Bill Murray's line was like, "Oh, Teamster just dropped me off, kind of here." That was literally a true story. Like, he said in the line, he says, I'm a friend of the producer, which was Ivan Reitman. And he says, yeah, the Teamster just dropped me off. Like, he got limoed to the set, and he threw on a jersey, and all of his dialogue is all made up right there on the set. So when you watch that movie again, this is just Bill Murray inserting himself in the best way Bill Murray can. So it was very funny. I remember that day on the set, it was hilarious, and he was just being very funny. All that stuff with him and Daffy Duck was just all made up, and we just animated around it after that. I remember that line goes, "You the duck." He runs off. That was just all Bill Murray. It was great. So we had a lot of fun working on that movie. Played against Michael Jordan too. That was fun too. I could never tell the story because Michael Jordan would never live it down. He's very angry still about the day that I beat him on the court. So I won't get into that. Talk to me off mic and we can talk about it. Cats Don't Dance. This is a fun movie too, so I'm really catching up here. Cats Don't Dance is, that was the first time we actually sort of got into the idea of like, hey, big dance numbers, 1940. I worked on this movie for a little while, really sort of established Danny dancing. One of the things I really love doing is animating characters dance. Like, I love doing that because it's just kind of, I guess if when you contemporize characters and you sort of put them in your world, it's sort of fun to kind of see that and be a part of that. I do a lot of dancing with my characters. I think if you follow anything that I've done, it's like most of my characters, for whatever reason, get up and dance. I don't know why. Even if it's not part of the story, I just kind of do that. Like this character, he dances a whole lot. Yeah, so Tarzan was really great because I think I was telling Thomas, like, when they first offered the idea of doing Tarzan, it was like right after Space Jam, and I was like, oh yeah, great, I get to handle the villain? That's fantastic. I was told that it was the villain by the directors, Kirsch Buck and Kevin Lima, and so my first day in the job, that's when I realized when they put the model sheets in front of me that I was animating a gorilla. I had no idea. I thought the villain in the movie was Clayton, who was the Englishman who carried the rifle, or he wasn't the Englishman, he was just the guy who was hunting, carried the rifle. And I thought that's what my job was. So imagine my delight when I realized I have to actually, me, the goofy guy, the guy who likes animating really broad characters, I get a chance to animate a very serious gorilla. So I had to really, and I had to sit alongside of Glenn Keane, who is one of the all-time greats. And so I really had to, like, sharpen my chops, I guess, and I'm still coughing about this day. And really sort of like pull everything that I knew and things that I didn't know to try to make this performance happen. The most interesting thing was that, I had to make sure that this character had enough weight to sit alongside of Tarzan, who was very serious. So I had to jump in and really design the character, and he was a very tough character to draw. Yeah, but it's like this. Thank goodness I got this particular assignment at the point where I was in my career, because at this point I felt like you feel invincible sometimes. You feel like I can draw anything. I can draw anything, and then you realize this big gorilla is like, I do not know how to draw gorillas. But eventually, I saw enough footage and found some footage, because if you've ever been to the zoo and you've seen a gorilla, what do? They just stare at you. Like, they don't give you anything. And animators are like, we are based on our research. I mean, we research stuff to the T, just like any actor would, but this gorilla doesn't give you anything. He did give me a pile of crap and then got up from there and walked and sat into the other spot and started to stare at me also. So no, he wasn't giving up nothing. So a lot of this performance, I had to just kind of like, I did a lot of tests. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. But everything, again, it's like you put your best stuff on the screen. I think, the thing about animators is like, I always tell people, it's like, when you're animating a shot, how many drawings does it take to animate a scene? I'm sure you get that question. And for me, it's really about, for every drawing that makes it to the screen from my side, there's 5 drawings that didn't. So, it's that's sort of the ratio that I work with in most cases, trying to find a performance with these guys. So Tarzan was fun on that level, just because I really began to really understand craft timing and everything like that. As you know, as an animator, you're all about your posing and your timing. Things have to be believable, yet still have that sense of whimsy that allows you to sort of push through and create performances. Yes, Emperor's New Groove, that famous meme scene. So funny, I remember when I created that, obviously I wasn't thinking that, 20 years from now, people are not going to forget me. I had no idea. But it was fun to work on. I mean, it was probably one of the funnier sort of non-Disney films of that era. Weirdly enough, I have those drawings at home, stuffed in a box somewhere. Yeah, maybe I'll sell them one day. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, Emperor's New Groove was really fun. And for me, it was like I was playing the straight man to Kuzmo. Kuzmo. That's a new character, I guess, and new version of Proud Family. Kuzco, thank you. Listen, I'm old, and, there's certain characters are going to stick with you, certain characters aren't. That was my character. That was Nick's character, so I will call him Kuzmo until I die, just because it was Nick's character. I don't know if you guys know Nick, but, whatever, Nick. So that actually led me through this time to sort of like, I had a love for feature animation just as much as I had a love for television. And so during this time of like, I actually started developing the Proud Family right around the time I ended Space Jam, and when we decided to do it as a series was right around the time we were just finishing Emperor's New Groove. I was rolling onto this show called Home on the Range, which basically closed hand-drawn animation at the studio. It's kind of funny. Funny story, but not quite. Because actually that movie, Home on the Range, was actually a really great movie once upon a time. It was actually called Sweat and Bullets, and it was a Western. And I was turned on because it actually had a black character in it who actually had a gun. And I was like, oh, this is going to be cool. So from the time they said, hey, you know, the directors at the time were like, we want you to work on this character. I'm like, fantastic. But I was working on another movie. And so in the midst of working on the other movie, when I come back to Sweat and Bullets, it was now called Home on the Range, and it was about 3 cows, and it was just everything that I hated about animation. And I was good. At that time, I was like, you know, at that time I had developed the Proud Family. So, you know, just to touch on the Proud Family a bit, it's like, initially it started out, and I think I explained this to you, Khalida, earlier, right? I'll just repeat this again. It actually started out as like, you know, I was looking at the landscape of TV at the time. This must have been like 1996, 97. And I saw that animated sitcoms were sort of the thing. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Animated sitcoms, The Simpsons. There was a version of Family Guy, maybe the first one. There was King of the Hill, The Critic. All these really, you know, cool shows that actually had sort of a more mature approach to the material, and the animation was fun. And I was like, well, how come we can't exist in this space? Like, it could be cool to have an animated, you know, a black animated sitcom. So I started developing these characters, but I started from a very junior standpoint. I just started with, I think, BB, the kid with the big afro, was the first character I actually drew. And then from there, I just started like, okay, well, then he needs a companion, and I came up with his sister, Cece. And then after that, I just did caricatures of my wife and myself as Oscar and Trudy. And then Sugar Mama is basically my mom. You know, I mean, that's kind of who she's called to the family. Everybody calls her Sugar Mama. So I kind of had, and then Puff is actually a real dog too. Puff was actually a dog that I could not stand. So Puff was like my mom's dog, and I remember when I was staying at home, and around the time I was going to school, and I'd come home, you know, for the summer, for holidays or whatever, and Puff was this little poodle that my mom loved, that he was just very protective of her. So he'd be the poodle where I remember this too. I was dating some girls at the time, and I said I was dating some girls at the time. And so I remember this one girl came to the door, and naturally Puff is like the in. So, you know, Puff's barking at the door, and you know, the girl would hear, oh, dog, oh, it's so cute, small dog, yada, yada. And then she'd kind of open the door, come in, and he would be jumping on her. I was like, yeah, don't touch him. She's like, oh, he's so cute, though, he's so cute. Yeah, just leave him alone. So trust me. Don't pay any attention to him. He's barking, he's running around, he's got his tongue around, he's like licking on your feet, he's like doing all this fun stuff. It's like, don't touch him. Oh, but he's so cute. As soon as you touch him, he would just go, he would just attack you. Puff used to do that all the time, like, and it would just send girls away. So that's why I said girls used to come date, because Puff would just kill all of my action. So, you know, and after a couple lawsuits, I realized, well, I can't have this dog here. But Puff would be like, I remember in the middle of the night, I'm asleep, and he would be sleeping at the foot of my bed. And you know, you shift in the middle of the night, right? All of a sudden, you shift in the middle of the night, he's like, and he's in your face, he's biting you. And I'm like, Mama, get your dog off of me. I couldn't stand Puff. And weirdly enough, I put him in this show. I could not understand, like, it's like Stockholm Syndrome or something like that, right? And it's like, oh my gosh. So that was kind of how it started. So crafted these characters, and I wrote lines about them and things that I wanted to bookmark and who this character is and such. But it was really the drawing. So I'm taking my packages and I'm walking them around town. This is good. This works. I like this. And so the first place I stopped was at, there was Disney Television, and then there was Disney Channel. So Disney Television was the first place that I stopped with this project. And I'm pitching to the executives. And, you know, they're there, and they're, you know, somewhat delighted off of, they like the sketches. Oh, so cute, yada, yada. So I remember getting the answer in that meeting. Black folks kind of know what this is. So it'll be like, all right, so what do you guys think? Well, we like this, but we don't do this type of thing here. You should try maybe BET or UPN or someplace like that. You guys don't probably know what UPN is, you know. The acronym in our neighborhood meant something different altogether, but UPN was like sort of the other black channel that was sort of on, you know, the network at the time. And it was basically black channels. They were saying, hey, take this to someplace black because we don't do this. So I laughed, you know. What do you do? It's like you laugh. I get it. Okay. So then that's when I walked it over to Nickelodeon. And Nickelodeon was the second stop. And Nickelodeon really liked it. They thought it would make a great companion piece to Rugrats, I think they were doing at the time. And so we created a pilot for Nickelodeon. And we would, you know, what they do, they would test pilots. So they would create pilots. We had created a 6-minute pilot. But one thing I forgot was that I mentioned in all these characters here, I created all the characters, and then Penny kind of wasn't there. So Penny was a drawing that I made because I realized that, okay, I need some sort of teenage entry point. So let me just create Penny Proud, who's like the, you know, 12-year-old, 13-year-old girl. And I remember pitching it to Nickelodeon. It was like, well, because this story is about these two babies here, BB and CC, who are sort of like late babies to this couple here, Oscar and Trudy. And then Sugar Mama is like the bane of Oscar's existence. You know, it's like mama-son relationship. It's as if Oscar's 12, and you know, that's how she kind of treats him. And they laughed at that. And he's like, oh, that's really cute. And they were like, but what about this character over here? She's really interesting. And they were pointing to Penny, and I was like, oh, yeah, Penny. So the show is completely about her. And so what you learn out of that, you have to have that pitch judo. You know that pitch judo? You be in the middle of a pitch meeting, and then you go, shoot. And they realized that what they thought they were hearing was that this show is about a 13-year-old girl who actually has parents and this, that, and the other, right? And that's what they were like, we like that. And I was like, well, that's what the show's about. So that's what we made the pilot. So everything flipped that whole day. And so that's what came. That's when I started, okay, listen, I got to now make this about this 12, 13-year-old girl, Penny. And so we'll bring in, you know, her buddies. So that's how I created, you know, Dejanay, who wasn't Dejanay at first. Black people love this too. I don't know if you guys heard this. But her name in the beginning was not Dejanay. It was Delinquinetta. I did do that. Yeah, I did. Yes, I did. I sure did. I sure did. Yes, so obviously her name had to change. In the pilot, you guys, I don't know if you've seen the pilot or whatever. In the pilot, her name is Delinquinetta. Like, you know, just they're riding in a car together, and she calls her Delinquinetta, and that's what it was. So when we got to series, well, let me stop there for a second, because that's when, you know, we sort of made the pilot and stuff. And so they liked the pilot, but, you know, again, when we were testing it in the wrong spot. So in other words, I'm from LA. I don't know if anybody knows LA. Anybody knows LA. So it's like, you know, I'm from South Central. It's like where all us live, right? We border the 110 freeway and the 10 freeway and 405 and the 105. Like, you know, roughly that's us. And so, you know, but Disney was testing the pilot in places, not Disney, Nickelodeon was testing the pilot in places like Chatsworth, which is sort of an all-white area, Simi Valley, which was where an all-white area where Rodney King got the crap beat out of him, so all-white area. You know, places in the San Fernando Valley where a lot of people did not quite understand the culture aspect of what the show was. So they weren't getting conclusive answers in terms of what they wanted to do with this pilot, Proud Family. But all this whole time, the Disney Channel is trolling Nickelodeon. So they're going to all the test spots where Nickelodeon's testing and gaining their own knowledge, writing their own notes, this, and that, and the other. So then I get a call from a Disney executive one day and said, hey, what's going on? And I'm at Disney at the time working on Home on the Range, Sweating Bullets or whatever. And so they're asking me, he's like, hey, so what are you doing about that Proud Family thing? I was like, oh, you guys seen that? He's like, yeah, we see it, we like it, we want to do it. What are you guys doing? I'm like, well, we're just testing with Nickelodeon still. They're deciding what they want to do. So they said, well, when you have the next opening, you know, come bring it to us. I'm like, okay. So I waited for the next option to open on our contract, meaning they have a 90-day window each time, and then that opens up, and then they decide to sign us for another 90 days or whatever it is. So we declined that option when they decided to open that window up, and then we just walked it across the street to the Disney Channel, and the rest is history, and they were kicking themselves ever since. So that's kind of how the Proud Family kind of formed itself. It wasn't actually done by the Disney Channel in the beginning, but we then sort of like, found a place to produce it, and then that's where I had to change the name from Delinquent Edit to Dijonay when I got to Disney. Like, we do this, but change this name, please. I was like, okay. I was like, can I keep La Cienega Boulevard as, though? They were like, okay, you can keep that name. La Cienega Boulevard is, if any of you guys know, La Cienega Boulevard is just a street in L.A. That's kind of where her name came from. So, and it's all L.A. based. Our show, for lack of whatever, it's like it's all L.A. fun stuff in terms of just landmarks and stuff. Wizard Kelly is Magic Johnson, basically. Other characters, the Gross Sisters. If you want to ask me questions about it, I'll just quell this question right now. The Gross Sisters are blue because they're ashy, not because they're blue. So what color are they underneath that? I don't know. Maybe in the new version we may scratch and sniff. I don't know. Let's see. Bobby Proud is an amalgamation of, Maurice White, Lionel Richie from the Commodores, not Lionel Richie from American Idol. More Lionel Richie from the Commodores. Let's see, Michael Cooper from Confunction, Larry Blackman from Cameo. Word up, you guys. Yes, that's Bobby Proud. So all that is sort of basically it's all as black as it can be. And for me, that was fun because I took everything I learned from Baby's Kids. And then just kind of went down the I don't care track. I'm just going to do this how I feel like is necessary for us, to respect it. And then once I brought the writing in, I thought that really helped, seal the idea of where we take it. I mentioned that. Skip past that. So Princess and the Frog. So after I did The Proud Family, I get a phone call from Disney saying, hey, we're doing this movie. It's going to be about this girl who's in New Orleans in 1930s, and we have a villain who's like this sort of evil doctor. And I was like, I'm in, there. That's fun because I knew exactly what I wanted to do with this character. So again, I mentioned how I like to make characters dance and stuff like that. The idea of Dr. Facilier really was once they came up with the musical aspect of him, I knew there were certain things that I wanted to do that I knew, I'm just going to be honest, that I knew other animators in the studio would not have done. That's all. And I sort of treat this kind of like a fun competition for me. It's like I knew when we were doing this movie, I knew that, okay, this is going to be my lane, and I'm going to be able to really sort of flourish and make a performance that at least would resonate with a lot of animators and also make animators sort of, like put it all on the table. This was a time where, hand drawn was kind of fading away even still, and this is sort of the last hurrah, and we all kind of agreed, let's just leave it all on the table. So this is everything that we feel like we can do to make this film great, we tried to do. So I jumped in and really made the design kind of fun and cool and funky for me. Keith David did a wonderful job with the voice, and I think this pencil test scene that you're seeing is probably the first scene that I did that was probably a production scene. So that was really... he was a really fun character to craft and to make, and being able to design him and everything from head to toe is kind of something that I hadn't been asked to do at the studio before. So I enjoyed that character, enjoyed the performance. He was really fun. And then I got rewarded by them giving me Piglet. So yeah, I was kind of pissed about that too, to be honest. Because when we moved into Winnie the Pooh, it's like everybody know. I mean, for an animators we know, the character that you want to get is Tigger. Like, that's the guy you want to get, right? So I'm thinking, okay, listen, I'm coming fresh off of an Annie Award nod, and it's like, okay, I'm ready. I done proved to these guys that I can actually, do a fun, nuanced performance, as us actors say. And they were like, hey, man. Hey. I'm like, what do you mean, hey? Like, what is it? So we got this little pig here. I was like, come on, man. Seriously? Really? Piglet? It's like, okay, you can have kangaroo too. How about that? I'm like, no. I was like, come on. Like, there's Tigger. And Tigger was Andreas, because Andreas was, Milt Kahl's protege or whatever. Okay, I'm just going to say this on camera because I've never really said this before. I am way better than Andreas. Yeah, I know, right? We got it on camera now, right? We got it on camera. I'm way better than you. And you know that. So, I love Andreas. He's fine. I mean, we're good, but I'm just better. So I kind of resented the idea of him getting Tigger, but I rolled with it. Listen, I had fun with Piglet. I mean, Piglet was cool. Actually, I sort of have to put this in terms of like, okay, let me put some street on Piglet. So, all right, so I'll say, Piglet is Pooh's wingman. He's his boy. It's like when it's time to get honey, Piglet is the one who's doing the lookout. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm just trying to put some cool points on, Piglet, try to make it interesting when I roll into the job. Because mind you, I really felt this way because at that time, DreamWorks was doing this movie called How to Train Your Dragon. And yes, right? Exactly. So I go to sit at my desk to draw Piglet, and all of a sudden, here comes the trailer for How to Train Your Dragon. The cinematographer was Roger Deakins. Come on. It's like you look at that first trailer, and you're like, what am I doing? I'm like, this is not even fun anymore. It's like, it's not fair. It's not fun. It's like, yeah, hand-drawn is about to die, seriously, because unless somebody adds some innovation to it, we cannot continue to do these types of movies. Because now what happens is hand-drawn animation was becoming its own genre amongst itself, meaning that it's a kid's thing. Like, it's just a kid's thing. And, until we try to really move this forward with better storytelling, better characters with more dimension and depth, and then you look at How to Train Your Dragon and whatever the heck Pixar was doing at the time, and they were doing something great. I forget what year this was, 2008 maybe. I don't know, somewhere up in there. 2009, who knows? It's probably Toy Story 2 or something crazy. Regardless, it was something great. And we realized that at this time, it's like, okay, we need to really up the ante in terms of doing stuff. So for me, it was really about, I love hand-drawn animation, but I love animation, period. So for me, it wasn't about, there was a serious divide in the studio at the time. There was these, hand-drawn guys who didn't want to learn 3D. There was the 3D guys who didn't want to train the hand-drawn guys. It was like a big riot was about to break out. Now you got to choose sides. And I'm like, I'm not choosing sides. I just want to make a great movie, guys. I'm not about the hand-drawn or the 2D thing. I've been through that whole thing before. So I think that was a time where I actually transferred over to Disney Toons, and I was directing shorts, and I was out of the whole sort of feature thing, which was great because I got a chance to really sort of dive into 3D animation and really direct some really fun things in 3D. So learning the 3D side of the craft, I think, was helpful also, and just being able to, as a director, you get to really sort of give your side of I was working on shorts at the time, so I was really driving the shorts and ancillary content at the studio. And then, went around and started doing all these different other projects for different people because you got to realize also in this business, if you're going to be an artist in this business, learn how to do more than one thing. So for me, it's not like there's no school for directing as an FYI, right? You just kind of learn it when you get the job to do it. But, there are storyboarding, there is storyboarding, and storyboarding and animation kind of are cousins in that sense because you are setting the template for performance for the actor in animation. So if you're an animator, learn how to storyboard. If you're an animator also, learn how to character design because you are, in a sense, I always describe character design as like being a great sort of car maker in a sense, right? It's like because you are providing the car for the driver. So it's like if you've got a great driver, you want to give that driver like a Ferrari, right? So, when you think about the best Disney films, like the designer at the Disney, whose legacy at Disney is like Milt Kahl. Milt Kahl's an animator, but he also designed those characters because he knew what designs worked in animation. So when you look at a movie like 101 Dalmatians, like a lot of those are his designs. When you look at all the later films out there, these are his designs, and he was giving these designs to really good animators. So if you were an animator and you're really given a good design, you know how to work it. Right? And so you don't have those problems that you run into with a bad design. I've had bad designs. I'm a good animator. I don't want a bad design, right? It's like, don't give me a Fiat. You know what I mean? It's like I don't want to drive a Fiat if I'm like Al Unser. I want to drive a really good race car. So that design is going to hamper you as from an animation standpoint if you're not given a good design. So animators, learn how to be good designers. You see a movie like Klaus, for example, right? You guys seen Klaus? Fantastic, right? That animator, Sergio Pablos, had his hand in all those designs because he's a fantastic animator, so he knows exactly what animators respond to. You know, what's a pleasant design, what's appealing in a design, what shapes work, what allow you to really sort of emote and act, and everything that you need to do as an animator. You got to give the animators their best design. But sometimes you can take a very mediocre animator and make him great if he has a great design to work with, right? So those skill sets are valuable in terms of you trying to craft a career in this. You know, as I went on to sort of work on other stuff, you know, I got an opportunity to work on Hair Love, which is fantastic. That's me, that handsome guy with no hair in the corner here. Yes. So, teasing. So, you know, it's like being able to work on Hair Love. When I got pulled into Hair Love, the boards were already up, but now it's like animation's time. So when it's animation time, I had to go in and take those initial designs and make them design friendly for all the animators so they actually can work these characters in the ways that we need to work. There was no dialogue in this film, so I had to make sure that these characters can emote and articulate and do all the things that's necessary for us to get to the next stage of winning that Oscar or whatever, right? You know, listen, you don't go into these things thinking you're going to win an Oscar. You just go into these things thinking that you're just going to do good work that's just going to resonate. That's all. And you have no control out of what's going to happen next. That's kind of what I learned in all this stuff, right? So it was a great experience. It was really fun. For one, again, it's like being able to bring characters of color on the screen, characters that you relate to and relate with a story that, even though it's a small story, it's a universal story, you know? And so I think that was the real appeal of Hair Love. You know, it's also, if you look at the designs in Hair Love, it's like we really took a lot of tropes and kind of flipped them. So, for example, for the dad, you know, it's like when you look at the dad, he's kind of, for lack of a better word, you would think that he's a thug. You know, he's got on a wife beater and the gym shorts and socks, you know, halfway up and the flip-flops and stuff, you know, with his hair sort of like dreaded in braids. And it's like, these are the things that, you know, you sort of, you know, you read about this guy on the 5 p.m. news every day, you know what I mean? But we wanted to show that guy in a positive light and show that, okay, this character here, despite the stereotype, we're giving you another version of this character that we feel like is not represented so often. So that was fun. And for me, like I said, I always find delight in bringing characters of color to the screen. So you asked me, what's next, Mr. Smith? Well, you know, ironically, when I was on a plane coming here yesterday, right? Jumped on a plane that morning, and the announcement was made while I was on the flight. So we're actually doing the brand new version of The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, for Disney Plus. Yes, thank you very much. And me being here for the first time, this is the first time I actually get a chance to talk about this. So, because I've had a gag order for the past 7 months or so. And even though we've had certain spillage from certain actors, you know, who said that we were actually doing the show, and people calling me, I could never say anything. So now, yes, I can talk about it. So let's talk about it. Everybody looking at Cece. Cece, what is going on with Cece? Is there another actress that's taking her place? No, Cece's 2 years older. So now she actually has hair. So yes, so we are, you know, jumping in time. Just 2 years, so Penny goes from, you know, 12 and a half to 14 and a half. So that means that BB and Cece are a bit older. Sugar Mama, not so much. And Oscar and Trudy probably, you know, black don't crack. So, you know, but yeah, we're aging the series up. We're bringing some new characters in. This time around, we're still that show that will pull at your heartstrings, but still talk about very important topical, you know, subjects. Subjects is going to make you guys squirm a little bit. You know what I mean? Things are going to put you on the edge of your seat. But trust me, you know, we've always been sort of a co-family viewing audience. You know, our material is aged up, but it's going to be a very joyous, fun ride. On Disney Plus, when are we supposed to be airing? Sometime in 2021, I think is the aim right now. So we got 20 new episodes coming. So yes, that's true now. Now it's true. I can tell you that it's true. It's real. It's happening. Everybody's coming back. The original cast is coming back. Let's see. They're gonna look. Some characters are gonna look a little different. You'd be surprised. But they're all sort of the same at heart. So I know one of the other questions was like, don't you touch that theme song. Don't you touch that theme song. Don't you touch that theme song, right? Well, we touching it. But it's banging, y'all. I'm telling you. It's banging. You're going to like it, trust me. Should I play it right now? Let me see. Psych, I'm not playing you. I ain't playing you nothing. Are you serious? No, but it's gonna be nice, you know. And so we're in the midst of getting, you know, those folk to come back and do this song again. So we got lots of people that are coming back to this, making it just as good as it was the first time around. So yes. So, you know, that's a little bit of me. I think Tom is gonna come up here and we're gonna go through the whole Q&A thing, and let's just continue to chop this up. I enjoy you guys, and I'm impressed with what I've seen from this animation unit so far. You guys are like really talented folk here, so this is gonna be cool to see, actually, right?
Yeah, so we're gonna do some Q&A, and we're supposed to sit over here, by the way.
Are we okay? Yes, I'll put this here.
Grab your water over there. Take a swig too. You need it. So. Thanks for coming. Now we are going to have Q&A. I'm kind of more up here just in case it gets slow. Like if they get shy, I'm going to ask questions.
I thought you was here just in case it get rowdy. And you're going to be like, you know, throwing some fisticuffs. Because, you know, like I said, Tom is from Compton. So I made sure that I was like, you know, Compton ready when I come up here. Because I don't know, y'all. I don't know if I say something wrong. Somebody will come down the aisle. We're going to have to get it.
I got your back. Don't worry.
You know what I mean? Somebody catch a fade or something. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Don't throw no shade.
I'm just saying, I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm ready for all the smoke. So, you know, let's do it.
All right. So raise your hand if you have a question. We do have a mic, I think, that's floating around. Okay, there she is. All the way in the back.
All the way up to the top.
Yeah. There we go. You're gonna get a workout.
Yeah, she wore your track shoes today.
I remember reading that you were involved in the Hullabaloo project. Can you speak on that at all? Like
yes. You know, that was, again, just like Hair Love, Hullabaloo was started as a Kickstarter from a buddy of ours, Jamie Lopez, who actually I kind of brought into this business, weirdly enough. He worked with us on Rodney Dangerfield, yes, as an animator. And I know that it's Jamie's project. He was forming this kind of like, would you say, sort of like an 18th century type of steampunk. So it's a steampunk thing. So that's 19th century. So steampunk project that I thought was really cool. I did some animation on it, and I don't know where it sits right now. Hopefully he can finish that soon. So yeah, that's all I know about it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You dug deep on that one. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, not everybody knows about that one. Any other questions? Because there we go. There's a couple over here. I'm going to start in on some more Michael Jordan if we don't get going.
Hey. So I have a question about your Proud Family pitch. You were rejected by Disney, one Disney studio, and then accepted by the other. Why is there a difference between those two in terms of what they're looking for?
That was a great question. I think, well, Disney TV at the time, they were responsible for things like Tailspin, that DuckTales, all those things from like, you know, that early time period. And the Disney Channel was responsible for more live action stuff. And the Disney Channel was looking for an animated TV show that would be a companion to all their live action sitcoms. So they're two different divisions at the studio. The Disney Channel.
And they had done Kim Possible, right?
Disney Channel
Before
did
that?
do Kim Possible, yes. Right around the time, I think we were in production at the same time. So they were just trying to add something in there for their tween audience. And we fit that tween vein versus the other shows that were less, they didn't, like Disney had human characters. Disney Channel had human characters in the show. And so I think that was the vein that they were going for. And I think because we were sort of like an animated sitcom, like a sitcom in terms of just its general conception, I think that it fit their model. That's why they were going for it. And like, I don't think that Disney TV was in that sort of sitcom model.
Yeah, I do think age group had a lot to do with that because, like, my girls were that age, like that tween age, and that Sweet Life of Zach and Cody and Lizzie McGuire.
Right.
Like that was Disney Channel.
That was all Disney Channel stuff.
Right? Good days, good times. Any other questions? Okay. So this guy, just while we're warming up, Marcus, hold on. He dropped this really briefly in your talk. You did play basketball with Michael Jordan.
Yes, I did. Next question.
I thought it was amazing.
Well, no. Well, so to set the template, when we were shooting Space Jam, they had this was between Michael Jordan retiring, right? So he was coming back from playing baseball, and he was going back to playing basketball again. So they were there to sort of, outside of shooting his movie, he needed to train for the upcoming season. So they brought in the floor from one of the local colleges. They built a dome on the Warner Brothers lot, in the back lot. And, it's like he had in one corner of the dome, there's a basketball court. And then in one corner, you walk in the door here, and there'd be his weight training facility to the left. And then you keep walking. And then there was a golf putter in this other corner, because Michael Jordan loves to play golf. And in the other corner was a card table, because Michael Jordan loves to gamble. And And in the other, and then this whole side here were bleachers, because people would come and see him play at night, right? So this is the 90s. So you had everybody from like Urkel to like Joan Collins coming by to sitting down and watching Michael Jordan play basketball, because every night he would have like scrimmages. But the scrimmages were like all-star games. So even though you're basketball fans, it's like a pickup game, but with like serious like ballers. So, every night, Magic Johnson's coming in, Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing, all the guys who were in the movie, Larry Johnson, Muggsy Bogues, plus you had a lot of the Clippers would come in, a lot of his nemesis would come in. So at the time, if anybody know Magic or anybody knows Michael, him and Reggie Miller didn't really like each other. Right? But Reggie's there playing basketball every night. They both talking back and forth like it's a regular season game every night. So the battles were intense. It was better than the All-Star game, because, sometimes you watch the All-Star game and everybody just kind of like letting everybody score and all of this stuff, right? It gets kind of boring. These games were intense. It was like shirts and skins, and, they cussing each other out, and, stuff that you don't hear in the game. Like, I'm hearing on the basketball court, so everybody always talked, like, Michael Jordan talks the most-ish in the game, right? Like, everybody know that. It's like, but you don't see it when you're watching it on the floor. You're like, I don't see nobody saying nothing. I mean, I saw Michael dunk on somebody and then get in his face, and, you can imagine what he's saying, but that was rare. But they always said that the biggest-ish talkers were Gary Payton and Michael Jordan, right? So, and I'm there, and I used to,
how does an animator step into that?
So I was the animation director, and so I, during breaks and shooting schedules like that, Michael and I would walk to the gym. I would be talking about the process of animation, what he should expect. Got any questions about stuff? I'm a guy, let's answer, yada yada. So we just go in the gym and we would just be shooting around. I played some ball, nothing special, but I played ball. So. And we just be shooting around, and, Michael just is kind of the dude where he just still, no matter who you are, he's like, well, you know what, champ? He said, I better not get you off in this court. No, he didn't call me champ. He always called me Cap. That's what it was. Cap, because I was captain of the animation team, so to speak, right? So he always called me Cap. So Cap, yeah. So get in here, one day I'm going to get you on this court. You're going to play. You think you this and that and the other. I was like, no, man. I'm like, you don't want none of this. Nah. I'm just saying, I've seen you dunk on Ewing and all that stuff, but I'm just telling you, I'm not Ewing. I'm next level. I always
Should
joke
have called
with
him Andreas.
Right, yeah, that would have been funny. So, yes, I'm leaving the Cap. He'd be like, all right, Cap, all right, Andreas, later. So we would just joke and talk and stuff like that, right? And so one day we were shooting, and we were done shooting for the day, and we'd go into the evening. Everybody would come into the gym and stuff like that, right? It's just kind of where we would all migrate to after at the end of the day. So, and I used to always just bring my gear just because I like playing, you know. Sometimes we would just be out there just shooting for the heck of it. So one day, they were about to play, they were about to run. I'm walking to the gym, just kind of shoot around. And then Michael sees me, and he's like, hey, Cap, lace him up, get on the court. You win. And I'm like, who? Because, you know, it's like on the court was like Ewing and Marcus Johnson and, oh, my gosh, I think Rodman was on the court that day. It wasn't anything about Rodman. Like, so this was before, you know, TMZ, and there were no cameras allowed inside of this gym. And so I remember the day that Rodman agreed to join the Chicago Bulls. I walk into the gym, and I'm talking to Joe Pitka about stuff, and I was like, what is Rodman doing here? Like, Rodman's here? And Joe Pitka's like, oh, yeah, Rodman's going to sign with the Bulls. They're over there talking about right now. They're over there talking about it right now. I was like, really? And I'm looking, and Rodman is like, he was wearing like, he didn't have on a shirt. I remember that because he had a lot of tats. And he had on hammer pants and flip-flops. Like, that's what he played in. So I was like, oh, he's just chilling today. No, he's going to lace up, get on the court a little later. I'm like, really? And flip-flops and hammer pants? It was like, yeah. He was like, yeah, okay. Hey, yo, painted toenails? He really going to do that, painted toenails? Yeah, he's going to come out here. Okay, work. All right. So I remember when all that went down and no one really knew. So I remember when he called me to the court, and this was embarrassing for me because, like, I'm 6'4". So it's rare that I feel short in a room, right? So I remember getting onto the court, and not only did I feel short, but I felt fat. Like, you ever had that feeling where it's like, oh, geez, like, because I remember, you know, thankfully I was shirts, thank God. Because Michael Jordan was skins, right? And I just remember the day, and we, you know, there's folks watching.
Was it dazzling?
Dazzling. Dude, I questioned my sexuality that day. Dude, he took off his shirt, and I swear it was like slow motion. It was like he took his shirt off, and like you can kind of hear that sort of audible gasp, you know? Because Michael had like muscles in places I was like searching myself. Like, where does that muscle come from? Like, what is this? What is this knob right here? He had like a knob.
We have functional muscles.
No, he just a dude.
He had beautiful muscles.
Yeah,
right?
it was. And it was all glistening and, you know.
And he hadn't played yet.
He hadn't even played yet.
He just was glowing.
It was just kind of dreamy, I have to say. I was feeling slightly seduced, and it was weird.
And then you got to go play.
And now I got to go play. And it was like, yeah, it was strange, you know. And so so I remember that. I remember that day. It was like really in slow motion. So literally, if you pan the audience and you see all these girls sort of like swooning, then the camera lands at me, and I'm like, oh, man. So I remember we're playing, and so now, you know, it's like anybody play ball in here, you know, you got to kind of get your wind up, right? So here he is, you know, we're taking ball out, running down the court a couple of times, and I realize I'm hyperventilating. Like, I feel like I'm about to pass out, like because I'm too excited. You know what I mean? It's like, this is too much excitement, and Patrick Ewing just passed by me, and he just hit me in the shoulder, you know, and there's too much money on the court. Like, I'm saying that I could trip somebody, and he could trip somebody else, and he could trip somebody else, and he'd be like, 16 million, 18 million, 22 million, 5, 12. I'm like, I could really level out the NBA right now. This could really be a bad thing. This could go bad quick. And I realized that. I was being very careful. This could go bad really quick. And so, you know, when you guys balling, when we balling out here, if you the stranger out there, you always ask to pass the ball, right? Because they don't know your game. So every time I got the ball, it's like, yo, pass them. Pass the ball. Like, get the ball up court, yo, pass the ball. Pass the ball. So I'm passing the ball. But I'm sticking like all-stars, you know what I mean? It's like, it was strange. So I'm really trying to digest. And there's no cameras to document this, which was weird because I just at least wanted to tell my mama.
Before iPhone, right?
Yeah, it was before iPhones and all of that stuff. So,
I feel for you.
So yeah, I just remember the very first time I heard Michael Jordan really talk, and there's kids in here. So I'm going to abbreviate this and says, he said in very strong Michael Jordan tones, he's like, I'm going to treat all you guys like I treat Cleveland, is what he said. And so he then, dribbled between his legs twice, and then he went to the basket. And what I remember most about that is when he jumped. I just remember I jumped too. And I just remember like this happening, like there was like the shoe that hit my forehead. And he went up and dunked, so I fall all over the place and stuff like that. And it was like everybody's kind of laughing because it looks funny because I'm out there along with everybody else falling. But I realized I was running down court and I had like the Nike swoosh on the side of my head. It was kind of strange. I was like, I think that's a Nike swoosh. Get that off. So I remember that, and that was the first time I was like, okay, he really does talk out here. Like he talks, And so he's cussing everybody out as he goes to the basket. You can't stick me. Cuss word, cuss word. Cuss word, cuss word. Don't come around this way because you're going to get it swatted. Cuss word, until everything just degenerated into cuss word, cuss word, cuss word, cuss word, cuss word, cuss word. So it was like, okay, like lots of bleeps on the court and everything like that. And so I remember, so I didn't get a chance to really even shoot the whole game, right? You guys don't know Michael, right? Don't tell him the story. I'm just saying, I just get the feeling you guys are going to report this to Michael and he don't like it.
2 people are leaving. Don't.
Okay.
No,
I'm being serious.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
Say hi
don't tell
for
him.
me, though.
Thank you. So, because Michael don't forget. And I'm going to tell you that story in a second. So,
was it like just seeing a ball buzz around you constantly?
dude, the game was moving so fast. And I'm used to playing, but like, it was just moving so fast. Like, it was just so fast. It was like my brain was on something else entirely. But like then the game slowed down after a while, so now we're actually winning. And I'm like really cool, but I really had to get a chance to get my game on. So here it is. We up by 2, game point. And so I remember coming down court, and all of a sudden I get this pass ball, yo. And I said, no, I'm not passing the ball this time, right? So now I'm like I'm dribbling. I'm like, okay. So now I put the ball between my legs, and I'm like going. So what happens, guys? When you put the ball between your legs, that means something's going to happen. So. And people start moving around the court and trying to set you up and doing all this stuff, right? So I put the ball between my legs. I'm going to the basket. All of a sudden, I get this pick. So Marcus Johnson is sticking me, NBA All-Star Marcus Johnson is sticking me. He gets picked off. And so now I got a free ride to the basket. Game point, free ride to the basket. And all of a sudden, who's curling off the screen? Michael Jordan. And I'm like, oh, no. And then I look, and it's like everything went in slow motion out there. And I'm like going to the basket, and I'm like, oh, he's going with me. And all of a sudden I look up, and I'm like trying to beat him to the basket, and he's running faster. All of a sudden I look up, and then you see the tongue hanging out. So I knew when the tongue was hanging out that I'm really going to get it.
He's like a cheetah coming up.
Oh, no,
on the
straight
side,
up he was
probably.
moving so fast, it was scary. I was like, I think he's going to eat me. So then at that point, I just could not think really, and I just kind of like did this, and then hesitated, and then kind of spun and done this thing, and then all of a sudden I threw it up, and then I just kind of like really my eyes was closed.
Wait, careful.
It was like that. That's what Michael Jordan. And so then what I heard was once I spun, it kind of threw it up and kind of did. It was really funky looking, like it was really cool because my legs was all like this and stuff, right? It was like as if I was walking in the air, all that stuff that Michael does. So I did all that, and all of a sudden I just hear this big cheer. Yeah! Right? Did I hear it? I didn't see the ball go through the basket, but the ball went in the basket. Game over, right? And I'm like, yeah. So, but when you play ball, you got to act like even if you did that shot, and as impossible as it looked, you got to act like you do that every day.
Yeah.
Right? So then I'm like, after he hit the shot, and I hit it, game over, everybody screaming, guys are, like really, how us black folks. So let me explain something. So we as people, like when we see stuff that's kind of like crazy and unbelievable, like we run away from it, right? Am I lying? We run away, right? So you knew when it was something special because in the bleachers, everybody was running away. On the side, everybody was running away. And it was like, okay, that was it. I won the game. So I'm like, because when I saw people running away, I knew it was good. So I'm like, doing that thing where it's like I did it and it's over and I'm high-fiving my guys and I'm just kind of running down court like, like I do this all the time. I do this all the time. I don't know. So Michael Jordan, pissed, because one of our dialogue guys was a comedian who ran up to Michael and said, Michael, you let the cartoon guy score the game bucket on you. That's all he needed to hear. So I'm running, I'm walking, I'm going, who's next? Who next, right? So Michael comes up to me, steps in front of me and says, we got kids in here. Michael comes up to me, literally says, cuss word, you cuss word. And I was like, yo, Mike, you got to get off the court, man, because
This is my court.
that was it. It's mine now, so you got to get off the court. So, yes, that was my Michael thing. So the thing with Michael is that he hates being beat, like no matter what, right? I don't know if you guys saw his Hall of Fame speech. When he got inducted to the NBA Hall of Fame, he was talking about everybody who rejected him in his life, people who beat him in his life. He invited the guy who beat him on the high school squad.
Did they bring you up?
No, I got the invite. I didn't show up that day because I knew what it was going to be about. But he invited the guy who was on his high school squad that beat him out of his team. He invited him to the Hall of Fame speech to tell him, hey, Leroy, look, I'm here, you there. Like that was what, I'm not kidding. Like Google his, watch it on YouTube. It's pretty funny. But that's really Michael Jordan. So literally the next day, I come to the studio, and then here comes the dialogue coach saying, hey, Mike, it's cartoon guy here. He beat you. He's like, well, he can't be here today. He got to go home. I was like, Mike, he works here. He doesn't. Can't go home. He's doing the direction on the animation. Well, I can't see him today. You guys make sure I better not see him today. So that was Michael Jordan. So even when we went on our press junket, 6 months later, we're in New York, and we're all doing interviews and stuff like that. And I remember Michael showed, when I saw him in there, I'm doing my interview. In the middle of my interview, Michael shows up with Ahmad Rashad, his boy. And he walked in, and he's like, and then who said something? I think Barkley said something. Hey, Michael, you might not want to be in this room. He's like, oh, Cap is here. Cap got to leave. You can't interview Cap. He got to leave. He has to leave right now. I was like, Michael, come on, man, it's done. It's done. You didn't have next. It was fine.
I'm better than you.
Just better than you. That's all.
Deal with it.
You let the cartoon guy do it. Yeah. So,
wow.
So now you have to edit this piece out entirely. No, I'm teasing.
Wow. You know what? You were mentioning that you had a story on that. I thought you were making it up.
Oh, no, this
really
is true.
happened? This is
all
why
true.
you're not doing Space Jam 2.
No, Michael's not in Space Jam. So I wouldn't have to worry about that. But I would have to take on LeBron, and that would have just been way too embarrassing for him.
Yeah.
Right?
At your age, I know.
Yeah,
It'd be
my
very
age is a little
embarrassing.
bit too much for him to handle. So, yes. Yeah.
All right, Marcus, you're up.
All right, so you mentioned earlier that you worked on over here. You mentioned earlier that you worked on a Goofy movie with, you worked on Powerline, and I kind of wanted to know, what was your, what kind of input did Disney have into the creation of Powerline? Did you, did you create Powerline? What was your involvement with that character?
Powerline was in the script. I don't think I designed him. As a matter of fact, I couldn't recall until someone put the designs in front of me that I actually worked on that movie. That's how bad my memory is on this stuff. And I was like, oh, yeah, those are my drawings. That's right. I do remember that now.
What characters did you design? Were they more background, or were they any of the main ones?
They were it was Goofy's, it was little Max's girlfriend.
Roxanne? No. Yeah, Roxanne.
Yes. Roxanne, oh, man.
I thought Carol Holiday claimed her.
You know how it is at Disney.
She animated him.
She may have animated him, but
Yeah.
everybody does iterations of the characters and stuff like that. And then you it's like, which iteration did they go with finally? Mm-hmm. So I had my hands on a lot of those characters, but man, I'm honest with you, I don't know if I designed Powerline or not. I don't even know. I couldn't even say yes. I don't know if I should say no. You know what I mean? So yeah, but I remember having my hand on a lot of those designs. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
See some hands around. This guy's is he the coolest animator ever? I think he is, yeah.
What?
Like Dorky, me and my brother, and then there's Bruce.
Yeah.
Okay, I did have a question. You're speaking about kind of your journey to get Proud Family onto the screen, Bebe's Kids, different things, trying to get black on screen. You're the only black animator I know. I'm not in animation. I don't know this world. But you came up during a time where obviously not a black people had access to this space. So can you talk about kind of your journey, and I'm assuming at the time you were one of the only black ones knocking on the door. So can you kind of talk about your journey being a black man in an industry that there wasn't a lot of human representation in?
Yeah, well, I think really for me it was like one of the things about animation, I guess, is probably the most that you can't fall back. I mean, that you know is always going to work at the end of the day is talent, really. I mean, unlike live action, not trying to slight any live action people, but I mean, I've been on enough live action sets to know where the talent is versus where everything else is, where everybody else is. I mean, even in the music industry, for example, it's like you know who the talent is and you know who the talent isn't. The people who have the hangers-on and all of that stuff. Like we don't, in animation, we don't have entourages or whatever, right? It's not like I can put my boy on. You know what I mean? It's not that because it's really about what your boy gonna do. Like what is his skill set? What is he bringing? Animation has always been about your skill set and how far your skill set can take you. So even though I'm a black man in this business, I know that I rely heavily, totally on my skill set. I think, you know, people talk about, well, have you experienced any racism in this business, for example, right? You know, I don't know if I have that quintessential race story. I mean, I've been in meetings where executives say some sly stuff, some slick stuff. I gave you that one example where a dude said BET, but I can, you know, on Bebe's Kids, I think I got a thing where it was pretty funny where one of the executives was showing a sequence where the kids were sort of like being disruptive at Disneyland or whatever, right? Or whatever we called it because we couldn't legally call it Disneyland. And the executive, it was a white executive, he got so excited about what the prospect of everything was, he went and said, yeah, you know what's great? I think this is really fun. It's got a really great energy. How about if that black kid just picked up a couple spears over there and just started throwing them, right? And I was like, pause, like, really? So you run across little things like that, you know what I mean? Where, you know, I don't know if that was conscious or was subconscious or he just was too lost in the moment and didn't realize that, you know, he could easily just pick up a Nerf ball and shoot it, you know what I mean? Like, why I gotta go for the spears? Like, what is that about, right? So, you know, and then there was instances on Bebe's Kids where one of the animators, because I had to work with a lot of white animators, right, who weren't necessarily into the sensitivity of everything and what really all was. And one guy showed me a scene where one of the characters, you know, we're just creating walk cycles. You know, we create walk cycles to kind of get you used to the characters and stuff like that. And dude brought me a walk cycle where one of the black characters, like one of Robin's buddies, and like he brought me a scene, the character's walking and his knuckles are dragging on the ground. And I was like, okay. And he's like, isn't this great? It's hilarious, right? I was like, dude, this is not funny at all. Like, so you know, you go through these things and you try to educate, you know, as you make these things, but you realize like you didn't have the artist to really have that kind of sensitivity, understand what they were doing. I don't know if he was doing that on purpose. You know, I want to say that he wasn't doing that. I'm just thinking he was just trying to go for something he thought was funny and just wasn't grabbing in the right area, right? So little things like that, you know what I mean, kind of bugs you and you kind of makes you think twice about a lot of stuff. But I think it's part and parcel for you know, the business and such. But never anything outside of just those moments. You know, although, I mean, I have to say, I always question, I don't know how to say this. I always question, well, normally when Disney casts, you know, when they cast people for roles and stuff like that, right? When they want a star or whatever, when they're stunt casting, they don't have those people audition. You know what I mean? Like, they don't audition these folks. They just cast people as they see fit. So I work with Robert Guillaume on this TV series called Happily Ever After, right? And he was like the narrator for HBO. He narrated all the stories, right? And it always bugged me that Robert Guillaume was the choice to play a baboon in Lion King. Like, it always bugged me, right? And I was like, why? Like, why Robert Guillaume? It's like it's a weird reach to me because he didn't audition. I asked him, I said, Mr. Guillaume, I said, did you audition for that role? He was like, no, they just called me and asked me. This is just me and my feelings. I'm like, why in the fuck did they ask you? Like, why did they ask you to play that? Like, they could have got anybody. to play that. Like why?
Yeah. But James Earl Jones is the lion.
That balances it out, I guess, right?
Okay. Just
But
throw it
no,
out there.
yes, you're absolutely right. I agree with that. But in this time of sensitivity, I'll give you another example. One studio was doing a project. They still are doing this project, actually, that featured, it was about an organ grinding monkey that goes from Cuba to Florida, right? Organ grinding monkey, that's fine. So the problem I had, well, I saw the screening in the movie, and I was told to give notes and stuff like that, right? Now, I read the script prior to, and I gave this note 2 years prior to me seeing the screening. And in the screening was exactly what I attest to in the note. It's a musical. The music is done by a famous musician, right? And in the musical, the music is great, I have to say, but in this musical, this organ grinding monkey is rapping. And I was like, yo, I said, I'm just gonna throw this out. I was like, I know you guys like this guy's music, because I like his music too, but like, I don't know if it's a good idea to have this monkey rapping, like, because I know what the animators are gonna do with that. They're gonna give him all the gestures of every rapper that we know, and you're just gonna be guilty by association. Now, I know you think it's cute, because it's a cute little monkey, and I guess whatever, but I'm just saying, it's not my movie, but it's my responsibility. I'm at the studio to tell you this. He said, okay. And then it went through another screening, and then other alarms must have went up. So this was 2 years ago. This movie is still being made, but they are changing the monkey to like some bear. So they can keep the rap music and all this other stuff, right? Because they started to realize that this is an area of sensitivity with these people. So we need to make sure that we make the proper adjustments so we actually can produce this movie. So just like anything, it's like you have to be able to understand the sensitivity of what you're dealing with, and adjust. I mean, I think it's on every angle. You know, I'm very aware of how we approach characters in the Proud family. You know what I mean? It's like for us, even for me, it's like, you know, when I created Zoe as the white girl in the show, she's sort of the token white girl, the way they would treat us and give us the token black kid, right? But I made sure that Zoe was feeling like that girl that you knew anyway. It's a girl that you felt like you went to high school with, who's the minority, but she's still cool. You know what I mean? She doesn't have these attributes that make her feel like she's a minority in the group. They all embrace her the same way, as we all should, right? So that was the reason, was to take that trope and flip it and then make it acceptable and make it the girl that, wow, she's doing X. You know, like Zoe's really fun. I mean, Zoe's so fun right now that they make lots of memes of Zoe dancing and just all this stuff, right? So that was the goal of it. It was to like, you know what, I'm gonna create what you would call the token white kid, but I'm gonna fully realize her into who she's supposed to be, who she is, and we'll make you proud to watch the show because she's a fully realized person. Yeah. So in essence, that's just the responsibility that we all have as filmmakers. So I'm making sure that that happens on our show in every angle. We celebrate all races on our show. Like in the first version of the show, I had mentioned this to you earlier, first version of the show, people forget that race wasn't even an issue. Even though we had a black family, like Penny dated all types. You know, Penny had an Asian boyfriend who, you know, had to deal with the idea of being in an arranged marriage, right? Penny had a white boyfriend who was a handicapped kid in a wheelchair, and he used that to his advantage. But he loved Penny, and Penny dated him, and then Penny found out she was dating him for the wrong reasons. She was feeling sorry for him, you know what I mean? And he took advantage of all that stuff. And it wasn't even about race. It was just, this is a kid who's handicapped. This is a kid who is who was headed for an arranged marriage. The racial issue wasn't something that the kids were viewing, you know? We put it through the filter of the adults, and they have an old school value to a lot of stuff. So that gives you a whole sort of spectrum that you can play with. In our show, that's what we deal with. We deal with lots of different contrasting views, but we all bring it back home at the end of the day because we do what we feel is right. The right thing is this. You present the problem, but the right thing to do is this, right? So that's what I think what makes our show kind of successful. So we can talk about anything. In this new version of the show, we talking about a whole lot of uncomfortable stuff, race included, because the kids are going to see that for the first time. So, but we handle it really well. You know, we talk about social media, we talk about all these things that kids are dealing with today, but the way we tell the stories, as a parent, you can watch the show with your kid knowing that you'll be safe on the other side, and you'll have stuff to talk about that is now, the flame has been lit for you guys to talk about it safely, right? So that's really what makes it cool. Yeah, so I think that circles back to me being an African American in this business somehow. All right, good.
I thought that was what you were talking about.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I was. Yes. You, or you, no? Are you just stretching? Oh. Oh.
So, I had a question, but also just I love the idea of you playing Michael Jordan, the idea of him like brushing you, like that's something I really want to like animate, just you like have a fangirl moment, but also, and I'm sorry to make this comparison with you because you kind of hated the movie, but it really reminds me of that scene in Home on the Rain where Bob's like, I wear a Rico saddle.
Oh, right. Oh, that's cute. Oh, no. Listen, I love the people on the movie. It's just, that's just part of this industry. You, like I said, you don't have control over the outcome, but, you know, all the crew, great folks.
It was about 3 cows, and one of them was Roseanne Barr, right?
Yeah, it ended up being Roseanne Barr.
Yeah.
Yes, right. Yeah.
So, doomed.
Yeah.
I know.
Hilarious.
Who wanted to see that? I know. Any other questions? Brandon does. There's a mic.
I was wondering, how do you, when you made the platform, how do you make sure you made a show that all that Black people can really connect to, that it felt authentic to them?
I think really it's about, the first thing I did was really try to make characters that people can identify with. Like, I wanted to make sure that you saw yourself in the show, really. Because when you do see yourself in a show, you have a tendency to watch that show more. Even if you're having wish fulfillment, if you wish you could be this person in this show, then you're going to watch that show, right? So, I mean, as a kid growing up, you know, I like the $6 Million Man. Y'all don't even know what I'm talking about. God
I
damn.
do.
Really? Oh, you do?
Oh, my gosh.
All right. So the $6 Million Man was this dude who was destroyed and then was made back up, you know, with parts, right? Now, $6 million a day wouldn't buy you much, but maybe a knee. But, you know, but the idea of, like, being super strong, like, because you somehow got broken down, I always wished that I was like, oh, yeah. When I was, like, in school, it's like the reason why I wanted to be a $6 Million Man, because I was like, if I was a $6 Million Man, I could jump higher. And if I could jump higher, you know, it's like, damn, I'm going to the basket with some force, you know. And I mean, really, those are the things that I would think about. So that's wish fulfillment stuff. So I could identify with, you know, the $6 Million Man, because those are things that I would want, right? So I think from, you know, a character standpoint, you create characters that you feel like somehow embody a piece of you. Like, I think even as animators, that's kind of what we do. We give ourselves to these characters somehow. So even if you know, I was talking about Piglet. So it's like, now I got to put myself inside of this pig who wears a onesie, you know, and did y'all know that was a onesie, by the way? Oh, okay. People thought it was a shell and, you know, that little thing he wear, you know what I mean?
Does it have wrinkles? It does have little wrinkles on the belly, doesn't it?
I don't even know. I didn't draw with wrinkles. I just, you know, yeah.
That would be clean up.
It's a onesie, though. Y'all didn't know that. Informed. There you go. See, learned something today. Piglet wears a onesie. So I had to put a little bit of me in that character based on the way he moves, or maybe how because he's kind of stupid. I'm kind of stupid too. So, you know, it's like I would approach a lot of the dialogue with a certain amount of innocence that I thought that maybe, you know, I would relate to. You know, as an animator, it's just our responsibility to put ourselves into the scene, into the character. So for me, making characters that resonate. Thankfully for the Proud Family, we had a whole sort of like region of characters that we kind of created. So at some point in the show, you're going to see a character that you relate to. That's kind of how we set up the world anyway. Between Penny and all of her friends and all of her new friends that we're introducing, you're going to see yourself in somebody there. even if it's a combination of a couple of characters. And as creators, as animators, that's how we should all think about it. Like, listen, when we sit and craft stories, what do? What's your experience? What is your experience in X, right?
Yes.
You have to bring your experience to the screen because that's the only thing that keeps it authentic. I couldn't tell you about going to the moon. You know what I mean? Giving a story about the first black man on the moon. I would know about the first black man on the moon. How would I relate that to? I would say, okay, so what if it's, I have to put it into some place that I probably had been to before, but felt out of place being there, something like that. So it's not technically the moon, but it's someplace that's completely foreign to me, whatever that would be. So, but I have the black man part of it. But like if you're asking me to tell a story about an Asian guy on the moon, I couldn't tell you that story because I don't have that life. So because it's like what's great about stories, like there's only so many stories to tell, but the characters are the one that alter the story. I can walk into a liquor store, in Compton, and Tom could walk into a liquor store in Compton, and we'll have a different experience. So it's a different story that we're telling, but it happened in the same liquor store. You see what I'm saying? So really that's where storytelling kind of comes to play. It's your experience. So when you're making something that's relatable, you have your experiences to count on, and that's what makes the story unique.
And one more question.
Yep.
If you could make any other project you wanted, what would it be?
Oh man. Okay. So okay, fair enough question. I almost didn't answer that question because then I'm giving you guys stories to steal. So, but this one you can't steal. I was working on a project at Warner Brothers, right? Because I told you one of my favorite shows growing up was the Flintstones, right? So I get a call, and they from Sam Redshow over Warner Brothers, hey Bruce, so we want to reboot the Flintstones. I was like, okay, that was one of my favorite shows growing up. Except we want to focus the show on the black neighbors that just moved across the street. I'm like, oh, yes.
That's a great idea.
That's a freaking great idea. Yes. So then I started world building my version of, the black Flintstones, like the Jefferstones, for lack of a better term. Right? The Jefferstone. So really, that's kind of where I started with it and just started really world building. And I love the designs of the Flintstones, all that. Like, who designed it? Ed Benedict.
Ed Benedict.
Yes, was the original designer for the Flintstones. So I just took those design cues and started adding black people in the mix, using those same ideas and the designs. Oh man, I wish I'd have brought them. It would have been fun to
They
talk
have to have
about.
Stone or Rock as their last
Oh,
part
rock
of their
is
last
easy,
name.
right?
Yeah.
Right. Not really, because you could have wood, you could have sand. There's all sorts of other.
Did they do that?
Sand, wood, granite.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, granite. Yeah.
Granite. There's all sorts of elements in the earth that you could actually play with names.
Yeah.
Oh, I was doing that all day. Like I had all these characters had families named and all of that stuff. That was just all dealing with early man and stuff
So
like
is
that.
it
Right?
dead?
No, it's not dead. That's why you can't steal it. It's not dead. It's just sitting there in the Warner Brothers vault, and a lot of artwork is at my home. So we're just waiting for the right time to do it. Which stupid. It's like now is the right time to do
I
it.
want to go to your house and get some of this artwork.
Oh man, yes, that's great. Yeah, no, it still is a really fun project. But yes, if I were to do another series, it would definitely be that. Like that, just is begging for. It makes so much sense to me. And still have Fred in the show. Fred was in the show, but Fred was older, and let me think. Him and Wilma were having marital issues, and they would barely be in the show.
It's like for adults mostly, or what?
It's both ways. It's it was sort of still co-viewing. I can make all that. I know how to write this stuff where it's safe, or I know how to at least frame it to where it's makes sense. Pebbles and Bam Bam were older, so they're in their 20s or whatever, right? And and Bam Bam was gay. That was kind of where I was with Bam Bam. But there was no such terminology as being gay. So what do you say when you just know somebody's different, right? So he was a little sweet. So so we were just, and then we just painted the world around it. The idea is really grounded, and we were just kind of having some fun with just the idea of making and creating and reconfiguring Bedrock, which could use some a nice sort of a color wash to it, which would have made it make sense. And it wasn't just black people we were bringing in. We were bringing Asian people in. I had a great Asian character who was like, you ever see the movie Hangover? The Ken Jeong character?
Yeah.
It was like a version of that character was in our world. Like he was kind of like this real sort of like, kind of, for the lack of the better word, kind of just this pimped out Asian guy. It was really fun. He was a really fun guy. So we were really doing some really colorful stuff to that world, and until we paused it. So, but it's still around, still available. Still be doing stuff with it at some point. Kavesh,
We were talking in the car about how, because we said that we actually figured out that we come from the same area.
Yes.
And grew up in the same area. And that you played, because you were in basketball in high school, and your school played my high school. What would have been my high school? If we had moved.
Yes,
Yeah.
Jordan High School. So yes, so Tom had a sister who went to Jordan High School. So I remember Washington was playing Jordan. Jordan came to our house, and I was having the game of my life. I remember this. It was the middle of the third quarter, and I had 34 points. I remember this. I'm like, I'm going for 50 tonight. Going for 50 tonight. Nobody can stop me. Going for 50. And I remember third quarter, I just scored a basket, coming down court, and the other player from Jordan grabbed me by the back of my jersey, which was strange. And so when I turned around, he just clocked me. Bip! Right. Wow. Bap. And I was like, I just got punched. Bip! And so we're just like going back and forth, and we're fighting, and then the refs called the game. And I was so mad. I was like, don't call the game. Just kick him out, and I could just continue on with my 50-point quest. Like, no, that wasn't happening. They called the game. I was so angry with dude.
They were tough at Jordan.
Oh, man, no. Jordan was no joke.
Yeah.
No. Jordan Downs, Grape Street. You didn't play around over there. Yeah. I'm surprised you survived. I'm surprised you're here right now.
You got beat up a couple times. Is there any other questions? There's one.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Hi. So I was wondering from how you've been kind of railing on it. Would you say that Home on the Range is responsible for how we don't have any more mainstream 2D animated movies nowadays?
I would say it's one of the reasons. Yeah. I would say that that movie, because it didn't do so well and it was just so unambitious, and it's not the director's fault. I mean, I know John Sanford and Will, I know it wasn't their fault. They weren't even the first directors on it. They were kind of directors by default. And they kind of were thrown this movie, and they were kind of given the task to fix it. And it's tough on them because we don't get the opportunity to direct. It's not,
And it's a good-looking movie, too.
Yeah, it is.
Looks good.
I
Good
have
design.
The book at home is wonderful.
The art of?
The designs were great. So see, that's the thing. Is like there's not. Joe Mosier did all those designs. I thought his design sense was really incredible. Mike Humphries was like art director. I think he did an incredible job at the Bee Gees. No, there was great art in the movie. It just didn't have much heart to it, and it just was kind of a lost cause. You stuck making a movie that nobody really cared about. I mean, at some point, that was the thing. It's like we couldn't even shelve it. You just had to make it because they had already spent so much money on it.
It almost made 2 movies, right, at that point. Yeah.
Well, Disney was good at that. Like Tangled was 2 movies.
Rapunzel then became Tangled. Yeah.
So they tore it down and built
Emperor's
it back
New
up.
Groove, same thing.
Emperor's New Groove, tore it down. It was Kingdom of the Sun, and it built it back up. So they had a tendency of tearing stuff down. The problem is, John Lasseter would say, tear it down often. Like tear it down early and tear it down often, so you can actually find what you're going to find when you make the movie. But you got to do it early. Like you can't be in mid-stride and tear it down. Like you can't do that.
Disney would be in production.
Yeah, they'll be in production
already
on stuff and
animating
then tear it
then
down.
go, let's start over.
Yeah, that's impossible because you've already burnt through about $20-30 million, and then you're tearing it down, so you got to pay for the staff to stay, and then by the time you got it built back up, you probably spent another $10 million. So, yeah, it's awful because of that, because it just wasn't. It started out ambitious, and then you could tell that they just didn't care after a while, and I remember when they thought that we were making too much money and all of that stuff, and so it was.
We were though.
Well, I remember walking. Well, I remember walking behind Tom Schumacher and Peter Schneider coming back from lunch, and right there on Riverside. I mean, this is a smaller conversation we're having right now, but it's like right here on Riverside Drive, and turning into the lot was this drop top BMW. And in the drop-top BMW, they looked, as it turned, they were like, who's that guy? It was an in-betweener. It was an in-betweener driving a drop-top BMW, and at that point, Peter and Tom looked at it and said, we paying these guys way too much money. They literally said that walking across the street. I'm right behind them, sipping,
Your Perrier.
Yeah, sipping on my Perrier going, oh, I didn't heard something I don't think I like hearing. So I knew right away it was like it was the beginning.
And it fell fast
Yeah,
after that.
I felt so bad. It's like, it was that thing where it's like in Goodfellas where they had actually had the heist and the dude came by with his woman and the fur jacket, the big fur jacket on. He's like, I told you not to buy nothing. I told you not to buy nothing. Like,
Yeah.
It was that moment where it's almost like I wanted to go to dude and said, I told you not to buy that drop-top BMW. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. Idiot.
Hide your money. Right. So it was really that moment. So, and they really were literally paying us too much. Well, they were paying us too much, which led to that collusion, the lawsuit that I'm sure you probably got a nice chunk of change from. Mm-hmm. So they were found guilty of collusion. Everybody had this handshake agreement from Pixar all the way down to whomever, Blue Sky, that they all agreed.
Oh, I was out of the union by then. I didn't get anything.
You really?
Yeah.
Through the year, they said through the years of whatever it was.
Ooh, I gotta
like
go.
1990 something, 1990. No, it was probably like 2000 to like 2018 or something like that.
Oh, I need to get some.
So yeah, it was like, yeah, you should check. It's probably a name.
I
with
left
your
it on the
check
table
Oh,
somewhere.
man,
yeah,
no.
I'm gonna track that down.
So yeah, so they froze all of our salaries all across the board. So yeah, it was nasty. It was ugly. Yeah. And so the camera's on here. All right. I'll wait on that comment then. Yeah,
Kids and
I
cameras.
I have a real issue with
This has been a fun one tonight. A little fiery.
Yeah.
I should have known.
Yup. I'm still
There's
better
some-
than you, Andreas.
Yeah.
I'm not taking that one back. I was going to say something else, but I'll reserve that comment. Yeah.
Hey man, I got 2 questions.
Yep.
First off, did you draw that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
man, let me tell you, I'm not crazy about this drawing because I had such a better version that they didn't go for. So I'm all up for keeping mystery, right? We don't come out for about another year and a half. So I'm like, guys, why show the whole family? Like, why show the whole family? These are, if you pay attention to what's going on online with Black Twitter is asking some questions. So I'm not trying to answer them, right? So Black Twitter is saying, is Penny going to be older? Is she going to be in college? Is that the other night? I'm not going to answer that question for you, right? So the idea was not to show Penny. And then Black Twitter was like, is Sugar Mama dead? Right, Black Twitter? Am I right about that? So I didn't want to show Sugar Mama. I hear y'all. Trust me, I hear y'all on my Twitter. Bruce Almighty with 3 E's. I'm at Bruce Almighty with 3 E's, just in case you're trying to find me on Twitter. Find me there.
He's there every day, all day.
I'm there enough.
Yeah.
So those things I wanted to keep a mystery. Okay. So the initial teaser poster was the iconic couch that was in the poster, but the only person in the poster was supposed to be Puff. He was going, see, that was funny, wasn't it? It's like, it was just Puff in the poster looking at you like, perfect poster. As a matter of fact, if you go to my Twitter, you'll see that drawing of Puff on my Twitter. So yeah, that was the one I was going to roll with. And Disney was like, you don't want to show the family? I was like, no, I don't want to show it's too early. We can roll out the family one by one, each week or whatever. Yeah. We can create these teaser posts, run the family out one by one so people can get answers, right? As we roll into it. Oh, I was being vicious. I was like, okay, let's just have Puff on the couch and he's wearing Sugar Mama's glasses. Or
like something happened to her?
Or let's have Puff on the couch and he's kind of like he's got Sugar Mama's coat and her shoes are down here. They're like, oh no, we don't want that. I was like, well, how about if we have Puff on the couch and we got a chalk line of Sugar Mama on the couch? They were like, no, that's not gonna work either. Oh, we had tons of ideas. I was like, so I had all these different sketches and stuff. So eventually, this was my bad. So I did this interview and it was a podcast. And this dude wanted to do his podcast. And so I'm sitting there, I'm doing it in my office. And all of a sudden he says, I'm hearing this buzz in your office. And I was like, okay, you hearing something? I was like, all right, let me switch rooms. So I switched rooms. I went to the room that had model sheets up. And I didn't even pay attention. I sat the computer down, like, okay, we talk. And he was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Is that the new Proud Family back there? I was like, oh, what? And I was like, oh, man, let me move this. But by that time, people took screenshots of everything. And
That guy released it all?
no, he didn't. All y'all did. I don't know who did it.
Oh, it was on YouTube.
It was the podcast was on YouTube, but the screenshot showed up and media outlets followed it and said, hey, they're creating a time jump in the Proud Family, yada yada. So people were giving stuff away. So Disney was like, you put it out there yourself, so we might as well just show the whole family. And I was like, God, really? Dang it.
They got you.
They got me.
Yeah.
But you know what? Secretly, they wanted to do the whole family anyway. Like they wanted to just show that.
Yeah.
And so they found an excuse because they still could have just did partial it out. I was even like, can't we just like have the couch and just put boxes on the couch? Like boxes in the shapes of all the characters. So to make you think that they're inside of the boxes and
they're waiting to come out?
They're just waiting to come out of the box. Couldn't we just do that? I had all sorts of silly ideas. I was like, couldn't we just put like maybe Puff on the couch and then have the couch, but then wrap the couch with under construction paper, like just like
That'd be fun.
yeah. See all sorts of things like
you
that.
You did a bunch of drawings, didn't you?
I did. I did about 60 versions of.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was
of the
serious.
show. Yeah,
That,
it was
that could
really-
be like an art of book right there.
It could be.
Could have been.
Yeah, it could be.
Did you have a second question?
I did. It was just more about
Oh, or a
the-
point?
Yeah, with the production, with the the animation for this new show. Like, is it going to be more of like a hybrid where like you guys are using like 2D puppets in hand animation, or is it going to be more flash based? Like, just a little bit more about like how the animation is going to be treated for the new version.
Okay, that's a guy up there. He knows animation.
I know.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
bit.
the answer is the former. We are sort of recreating the show in Toon Boom. So we are sort of creating digital puppets, which makes sense for us because, the first time we did the show, we had two studios we're working with. One was in Korea, the other was in Australia. The Australian studio was better, and they used the version of Flash along with hand-drawn, kind of a hybrid. And it kind of ended up being sort of the better visual version of the show. So, but obviously Flash is not the way to go. And I think, when you see a show like Tangled, for example, the show that,
The TV series.
the TV series, I think they do an incredible job with Flash Harmony or Harmony Toon Boom puppets. So for us, it just makes sense that our characters, they can adapt from a design standpoint in Toon Boom. And so we've done some, we're doing some proof of concept stuff, and it's coming out really great. Like, it's really fantastic. So yeah, that's the route we're going to be traveling this time around.
Cool.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
I'm gonna sneak in just one more, and you might not be able to say this, but so like with newer cartoons now, they tend to be a little bit more serialized. Are you guys gonna be implying that into the new show, or is that something you can't really talk about?
Like ongoing storyline?
Yeah,
Well, one of
kinda
the
like
things
new
that
DuckTales and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. So we're going to be lightly serialized, if that makes sense. I think all of our stories aren't going to sort of connect in a sense, but there's going to be certain character arcs that are going to that we're playing over the 20 episodes that will make sense because it's like every character has to sort of grow as you kind of get on. So we do have certain relationships that we're sort of like finessing throughout the 20 episodes, stuff like that. So we will have some light serialization, I think, is the best way to describe it. And really, that's because nowadays, everybody's streaming. They have this thing in streaming called completion rate, and that's what they determine if people are watching the show. They know if you dropped off after episode 3. Yeah, they have this like their own Nielsen, so to speak. Yeah. So they know if you dropped off. But one of the things that's been keeping people involved is serialization. Because people want to know what happens in the next episode, what happens in the next episode, what happens. So that makes people continue to watch when you lightly serialize, at least. So we will have light serialization.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, man, good questions. Yes.
Real quick while he's setting this up, hang on one sec. Who would you say is one of your mentors? Say maybe when you were at the Don Bluth studio.
Oh, man. John Pomeroy, easily.
What?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Oh, man, you guys don't know? Oh, man, John is like...
Please, go ahead.
Oh, man, John was... Back in like, what was that, in early 80s and stuff like that, like, John and I worked together a couple times, but I learned a whole lot from John coming out of college. John was like the next man up. Like at Disney, when he left with Don Bluth and those guys, like he was literally the next guy. Like, and his animation on those Dragon Slayer video games, I don't know if you guys seen that stuff. I don't know if he shows you guys that stuff or whatever. But like that last part in Dragon Slayer where Dirk finally gets into the den with the dragon, and he gets to battle the dragon and save Daphne and all that stuff. Man, that stuff was everything when I was like, at the studio. And when we were at the studio, I was the only person that actually could go through an entire game. So I would play the game for all the celebrities and stuff that come in, right? So when people would like when Don would sort of escort people through the studio, he would ask me to come play the game. I could go through
Bruce,
the game.
play the game, because that's the only way they could show it.
That's the way they could show it. It's like, this is the best way to show it. He wanted to show it in context of everything. Yeah. So I remember playing the game for like Burt Reynolds. If you guys know who Burt Reynolds is. The Bette Midler. No, it was really fun, and it was pressure because you got to get through the whole thing. You only had 3 lives or whatever, right? So, and Don's cheap. He made us pay to play the game, at studio. Drop a quarter in. Don's so cheap. So, so that's why I had to learn quick. Actually, Don probably didn't know this either, but like I found a way to play the game, off of 1 quarter and stuff. Like so back in the day, I used to do this, man, so bad. So Atari used to have this thing where you play video games. They had their game slots. So I was hanging around playing this game with some guys who knew how to rig the machine. It sounds so silly, but like literally what I used to do is put a piece of tape on a quarter with a string. Sounds so silly, don't it?
Oh, yeah.
That's some Top Cat stuff or whatever.
I heard about that, yeah.
So you drop the quarter in, and it would click the game, give you a credit. So then you pull the quarter up and let it drop again because you got the tape on it. And it just click, ching, cha-ching, 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 cha-ching,
Rack up games, yeah.
And then once you got up as much as you want, you just snatch the thread. So the only thing that's on the quarter is that piece of tape. So, the guys who come in to change the video machine out, they would be wondering, like, how come there's no quarters in this game? It's like not enough quarters that they would be used to because the game sitting next to it, whatever that would be, would have tons of quarters in it. Guys would cash it out. But this game, it's a very popular game, but like it's not getting the business the way the others. Then they figured out it was the tape thing, right? And so like then
a week later they'd throw out the game. Nobody's playing this.
No, they found it. No. What they did was they then fixed the slot. So then I remember this Asian dude taught me this. He said, I found a way to fix the game. I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah. So he took pennies, and he would knock off the slot where the change would come out, Like, say you put too much in and the slot change would come out. He'd take a screwdriver, knock that slot off, and take pennies and shove pennies up the other side. So all you need is something to go to the other side, and it would go down and click and add all these games. So then the game guy would come back in, he'd find all these pennies down here. He's like, what is going on here with this game? It's like, yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, no, it was great. So I was just waiting for Don to change the slot, so I was going to knock the slot off,
back to
drop
John,
pennies.
They're all being taught right now by John Palmer.
Oh, are you? Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of them here.
Oh, no, John is great, man. Really, like, if he's got old Space Jam, or what's that, not Space Jam, but Space Ace model sheets, like, have him dig those and bring those out because he did all those model sheets. Those model sheets are great. Space Ace and Dragon's Lair. Yeah, if he's got those model sheets, like really, like make him bring that stuff to you guys because those
here's
designs
the thing.
are great.
We all hear about Don Bluth, right? And
Yeah.
he left with Don Bluth and blah
Right.
blah blah. Earlier today, you saying maybe John was better?
Oh, hands down, John was a better animator than Don
Yeah,
Bluth.
that's
Oh
what I
yeah,
wanna
for
hear.
sure.
All right.
Oh yeah. No, I knew Don's tricks. I saw him. I was watching the movies. Like if you want to see Don's animation, I think you'd probably let's see. He did some stuff in Robin Hood. He did those rabbits in Robin Hood. Don Bluth did. But John's stuff in Small One. I don't know if you guys seen Small One. John's stuff in Small One is really great. Yeah. No, John to me hands down was a better animator than Don for sure. Yeah. And certainly he blew Gary Goldman. I don't know if Gary Goldman's even in the conversation. I don't even know.
I'm not bringing him in.
Okay,
but
good. All right.
Nice guy.
I like Gary.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
Any other questions?
Yeah, hey, so as an animator, moving into being a show creator and that sort of thing, do you write on your shows?
I don't write on the Proud Families. So the way I work the Proud Family is that I'm executive producer, but I operate a different way. So I hire writers to write the show, but what we do in Inception is that we sort of talk the bigger picture, bigger strokes. I come up with ideas for stories that we want to tell. We all sort of smash heads about the stories that we tell. and I let those guys do their job after that. Like I don't necessarily have to be involved or try to tell people how to do their jobs. I think when you hire people to do jobs, you let them do it. Like, you know, so no, I don't write specifically for that purpose, but I do jump in on the stories that we're going to tell and how we tell them and who we tell them with. And then I just leave the writing for what it is. So then what I do at that
But you're
point.
reading all the scripts, right?
All day, giving notes all
Yeah.
day. Yeah. And so what I do is I jump in on the show making side. So now I'm with the directors. I'm kind of like the overall director, but I have directors up under me. So at that point now I'm executing the shows that come from the scripts. And I love that because I get to laugh from a fresh perspective. So when I see the full script, I know that it's not my writing. So I'm not, you know what I mean? It's not so incestuous, I guess is the best way to describe it, right? It's like I got to let that sort of be and let it do its own thing. So when I read scripts, I laugh out loud at stuff genuinely. And I'm like, oh, this is great. I kind of see how this can work, right? So now I'm with the directors and all the story artists making sure that we are now creating that show. We're creating this version of the script. And I think that's where I operate best, you know? So getting in, making sure that we got all the proper, you know, everything is correct. The staging, the music, I'm with the animatics, so I'm cutting together the animatics with the directors and stuff like that. And then so when it's time to call in retakes, I'm calling retakes. You know, I'm drawing over boards. It's important that I draw, so that's why I kind of stay out of the writing side as much as I can. But it's important that I get in and draw and make sure that everything that's in the writing, that integrity stays intact on the animation side.
Yeah, it's encouraging to hear just because it's in television particularly, such a writer-dominated industry.
Yeah.
That for an animator or others, it can be intimidating to try to step into it, even if you have a great story vision.
Yeah.
So it's cool to hear you're getting that done.
Oh, man, no doubt. I think it's important to, again, as a leader, to make sure that you make them know that it's safe, that I'm not some big overbearing shadow on everything, that you make sure that they know it's a collaborative effort. You see what I'm saying? So I got to make sure that writer, that showrunner gets his proper respect, knowing that as we move forward, we're doing this together. You know, there's no me in this, right? It's all of us, right? So, and I know that we all have the best interests of the show at hand. So that's the most important thing for me. And that's where I find we all function best. Yeah.
Well, guys, I do think we need to kind of wrap this up. It's been a great time with Bruce Wayne Smith. Hilarious. All right. Thank you.